You take a pill. You feel better. The pain goes away. The symptoms disappear. And you think, it worked. But what if that wasn't the goal? What if the goal was not to cure you, but to keep you coming back? Because in modern medicine, success is not always measured by how fast you recover. Sometimes, it's measured by how long you stay a customer. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a business model. And once you understand it, you start seeing things differently. The pharmaceutical industry is worth over $1.5 trillion. $1.5 trillion. That number doesn't come from curing people quickly. It comes from managing conditions. Long-term, chronic, repeatable. Because a cured patient is a lost customer, but a managed patient is recurring revenue. Now let's be clear. Not all drugs are bad. Not all companies are evil. Modern medicine has saved millions of lives. Antibiotics, vaccines, emergency treatments. These are breakthroughs. But that's not where most of the money is. The real money is in chronic conditions. Conditions that don't go away. Conditions that require daily medication. For years. Sometimes for life. High blood pressure, diabetes, anxiety, depression, cholesterol. These are not one-time treatments. They are long-term systems. And that changes everything. Because when a system depends on long-term use, the incentives change. The question is no longer, how do we cure this? The question becomes, how do we manage this continuously? Now think about how drugs are designed. A drug is approved, not because it cures a disease, but because it performs better than a placebo, or better than existing treatment. That's the standard. Not cure. Improvement. Small improvement. Sometimes very small. Enough to pass trials. Enough to be prescribed. Enough to enter the system. And once it's in the system, it stays. Now let's talk about dependency. Not addiction in the dramatic sense, but reliance. Subtle. Quiet. Normal. You take something daily. You feel better. You stop taking it. You feel worse. So you continue. Not because you're addicted in the classic sense, but because stopping feels like going backwards. And that's powerful, because now the product is not optional. It's part of your routine, your identity, your normal. Now multiply that by millions of people. Every day, every month, every year. That's not just healthcare. That's a system. Now here's where it gets more interesting. Pharmaceutical companies don't just create drugs. They also influence how diseases are defined. New conditions are identified. Thresholds are adjusted. What used to be normal variation becomes mild disorder. What used to be temporary stress becomes chronic anxiety. What used to be aging becomes treatable condition. This is called medicalization, turning everyday experiences into medical problems. Because once something is labeled, it can be treated. And once it can be treated, it can be monetized. Again, not always malicious, but structurally profitable. Now think about marketing. You might think drugs are only promoted to doctors. That's partly true, but in many countries, they are also marketed directly to consumers. Through ads, through awareness campaigns, through education. You've seen it. Talk to your doctor about. Ask if this treatment is right for you. These campaigns don't sell a product directly. They sell a conversation. They plant an idea. And when you walk into a doctor's office already thinking about a treatment, the dynamic changes. Now the doctor is not introducing the idea. They're responding to it. And that matters, because prescribing becomes easier, more normalized, more expected. Now let's talk about trials. Clinical trials are the backbone of drug approval, but most people don't realize who funds them. In many cases, the companies themselves, which means they design the study, they choose the endpoints, they decide what gets measured, and sometimes what gets published. This doesn't automatically mean manipulation, but it does mean influence, because the way a study is designed can shape the outcome, and the outcome shapes the narrative. Now here's something even more subtle. Side effects. Every drug has them. Some small, some serious. But here's the key point. Side effects are often managed. With other drugs, one medication leads to another, and another, and another. Not intentionally as a grand plan, but structurally. It creates a chain, a system where each solution opens the door to another product. Now step back and look at the full picture. You have conditions that are long-term, treatments that are ongoing, marketing that encourages usage, studies influenced by funding, side effects that create additional demand. All of this feeds into one outcome: continuity, not resolution. And continuity is profitable. Now again, this doesn't mean doctors are part of some system. Most doctors want to help. They work under pressure, limited time, standard guidelines. They rely on available tools. And those tools are pharmaceutical. So the system continues, not because of one bad actor, but because the structure supports it. Now here's the part that matters to you. When you take a medication, ask yourself, is this solving the root problem or managing the symptom? Is this temporary or indefinite? Is there a plan to stop or just to continue? These questions don't mean you should reject treatment. They mean you should understand it. Because the difference between using a tool and depending on a system is awareness. Now let's be fair again. Chronic diseases are complex. They don't always have simple cures. Lifestyle changes are difficult. Prevention takes time. Medication is fast, accessible, reliable. So of course it becomes the default. But default does not mean optimal. And optimal does not always mean profitable. Now imagine a system where prevention was the priority. Nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management, education. These don't generate recurring revenue, not at the same scale. So they don't dominate the system, even though they matter. Now here's the takeaway. The pharmaceutical industry is not built to cure everything. It is built to operate within a structure where long-term management is often more valuable than short-term resolution. And once you see that, you stop asking, why am I taking this? And start asking, what is this actually doing? Because understanding the system doesn't mean rejecting it. It means using it wisely. And that's the difference between being a passive consumer and an informed one. That's it for today. If you made it this far, you already think differently than most people. This channel is about exposing the systems behind everyday life. No noise, no exaggeration, just how things actually work. Studio microphone voiceover powered by Redacast. AI voiceovers for faceless creators. Link in description. Drop a comment and tell me what system we expose next. Because this one is just the beginning.